So, for human resource management, the last day we looked at basically just the job being advertised, what a HR department would be involved in, from planning, recruitment and selection. Obviously putting out a job out there, giving details of the job, the person you want for the job is the person specification, and then you have your job ad. And there's a list of things that will be included in your job ad. And what happens from there? Well, obviously, you'd hope that once you put out a job, that people will start applying. So the HR manager matches the job application against the job description and person specification. So they go through people's different applications. So let's say 100 people apply for a job. They'll go through the list for the 100 people that apply, and they'll see which individuals would be suitable candidates. And this is basically the process of screening candidates. It's just to make sure that people, I suppose, are meeting the criteria that you set out for the job that you have. Number of different ways in which they can request that people apply. More often than not, there is a CV, a curriculum vitae. In America, it's called a resume. This is basically your document detailing all about you, your past experiences and qualification skills, and work experience. Your cover letter as well, generally just kind of more of a background for explaining who you are, and why you would be suitable to such a role. I am going to get templates from the internet just to kind of show, because I don't want to show my own, but it's something that you may not have put much time and effort into at the moment, but it's completely necessary unless you plan on being self-employed for your entire life. You're going to be applying for positions with different people, so a CV and a cover letter, and having those things to work on them and build them up over the years is incredibly important. An application form. So sometimes if you're applying for a specific job, let's say you're going for a manager of a local restaurant, there might be an application form attached where there'll be a list of questions on that form, and it'll generally kind of cover a lot of the stuff that's in your CV and cover letter anyway. But you'll have to fill out the actual application form and send it back. So sometimes they don't want you to send your CV, they want you to fill out this form. And it might be 4 or 5 pages, it might be 10 pages, depending on what you're applying for. So this is just different kind of, I suppose, different documents that they will request upon you applying for a job. While you're applying for a job, maybe part-time work or something, in the weekends or summer or anything like that, usually there's not a whole lot involved. You drop in a CV to, as I said, you drop in a CV to Tesco, and you apply for a job there, and you get work for the weekends and summer hours and stuff like that. And there's not usually a huge application process. But if you were to go on to college and try to get employed in a grad program or anything like that, and we will be looking at things like that, usually there's much more steps to the process. So selection tests, and this is generally, as I said, for maybe some of the more bigger companies out there. The HR manager may conduct a range of selection tests to further shortlist the candidates. If you're applying for your local town, village, or whatever, there might be 20 people, there might be 5 people, there might be 3 people that apply for a job. It's, I would say, quite easy for the HR manager to go through all those documents. If you're applying for a job in Google, if you're applying for a job in Amazon or any of these kind of positions, there are thousands of people. I think Google is in Ireland anyway, because they've offices in Dublin. I think it's one of the most sought after positions, that there's thousands upon thousands of people that apply to work in Google every year. There's a range of different benefits for the employees, so generally people like to work there. You'll find that thousands of people apply there. And for a company like Google, if you're getting thousands and thousands of CVs and application forms in, they need other ways to select people. And this could be other stuff that they might ask you to do. More often than not, if the job is difficult to get, if there's a lot of people applying, they will have additional things that they'll want you to do. Why? Because it kind of weeds out the people that don't really have an interest in getting the job. If I have to apply for a job and I have to send in my CV, that's no problem. I have my CV done, I'll just send it out. But if I have to do an intelligence test, a personality test, if I have to do other applications online, if I have to create a video of myself online, that could take hours upon hours upon hours. So you have to be committed to go through that full application. So usually for big companies like that, they'll have 4 or 5 different steps to applying, and basically, anybody who's kind of only half thinking of applying might not go through with those 5 steps. So the company won't have to deal with as much applications. So these are some of the different things that you might have to fill out. I know for Amazon, again, one of the obviously very large companies in the world, they would have intelligence tests, and they would have different tests in terms of, but abstract problem solving and things like that, where they'll present you with some parts of it, I suppose, are just a test to see how you would react to this problem. What would your solution be? And it's just kind of getting to know the candidate better. And as I said, sometimes obviously it can kind of, anyone who's half, I suppose, lazy about the way they want to apply won't bother applying. So they kind of, by putting out 4 or 5 different steps, they're generally only getting people applying who are motivated to go through all steps. So intelligence tests could be one. You measure numerical or language reasoning. Personality tests, you can see some of the stuff online. They're available if you want. You can Google them and see what a personality test looks like, an intelligence test. Kind of get to know a little bit about yourself. And a work sample test. So candidates perform sample jobs to identify whether they have necessary skills for the role. Usually that might be something that might be at a center that you might go to. But there's a range of other different things that you can do. I'm actually going to get you to look into the Jemson grad program. One of the more exciting graduation programs out there, where basically generally it's for people that come out of college, that they have to go through about 6 or 7 different stages in order to get the job. It takes about 6 or 7 months from when you first apply to go through all these different steps. It's kind of, there's multiple different interviews, and it's quite a fun job. It's well advertised online if you ever looked up the Jemson grad program. And they have to create a video, and there's some very entertaining videos up on YouTube. They've created a fun video all about themselves and make it as entertaining as possible. It's an incredible amount of work that goes into it. I know, because my sister was at the Jemson grad program, that the work that you have to put into applying for it is huge. But it's a very entertaining job for anybody that's really into marketing or really into anything along those lines. I'll reference that later. I'll send on something for the Jemson grad program. Next stage is interview. Obviously, if you've picked out some certain people from sending your CVs or application forms, and you've done other forms of tests, now you have an interview stage, or maybe multiple interview stages, depending on how many people apply. So a formal meeting between the applicant and representatives of the company. And as I said, generally, you have your 3 people here sitting behind the desk. 1, if not 2 of them could be involved in HR, and the other one might be just the manager. Depending on how big the company is, depending on how stuck they are for employees. Generally, if it's a higher end job, if you're taking, as I said, a manager job, you'll be under much more scrutiny. Whereas if you're just coming in to be, I suppose, a regular employee for that company, it might be a much quicker process. One-to-one interviews and panel interviews. Obviously, one-to-one means that there is one person interviewing you, and a panel interview then, as I said, would be multiple people as a HR manager, manager of a relevant department. There's usually between 2 to 4 interviewers, and I would have had experience. I'm presuming maybe some of you might have experience of formal interviews like this. I've had it before where there was one person in front of me, and I've had one where there's up to 5 people. Obviously people from different sectors, and they ask different questions, but everybody would be observing you throughout the interview. Reference check and job offer. So if you get to this point, you're doing very well. A reference check would be basically that they have picked out maybe 1-2 candidates from the interview that they feel could fill the position, and now they want to check to see if those candidates, basically if their information checks out. So if I have on my application form that I have a master's degree from a certain college, they'll go and they'll check out with that college to see if I have the correct degree. If I put down that I have Previously been teaching in so many schools here across the country, and I need to give a reference. I might give my principal's contact details, and that school will contact the principals of the school that I was previously working in and just inquire as to what kind of employee I was. Your reference checks basically are very important because it's generally the people that you are working with, previously your manager or anything like that, and they are basically telling your new employer how you are as an employee. It's very, very, very important to build up a good relationship with some of your previous, I suppose in general cases, it's mostly managers. And that they're your reference for when you're applying for a job later down the line. You would need people to back up your statements to say that you're very hardworking, you're punctual, you're an innovative worker, and so forth. For anybody that is working a part-time job while they're in college, and then they quit last minute and they annoy their manager, and then suddenly a year later they're applying for a job elsewhere and they need a reference. They've kind of shot themselves in the foot. If you've kind of annoyed your previous manager, you need to build up good relationships with people. So that's what a reference check is. If anyone's seen the TV show Suits, it becomes kind of it's a major plot of the show. There's a guy basically who takes on a position as a esteemed lawyer for a company, and he puts down on his application that he is a graduate from Harvard Law, when he is in fact not a graduate from Harvard Law, and he manages to get past the reference check, but it kind of sets up a plot for the TV show. But the idea is obviously that if you put down you have certain qualifications during a reference check, the HR manager will make sure that you have those qualifications, and that you're not just pretending that you have a CV with a master's degree or whatnot. It's very easy in this day and age to go online and to print off fake degrees, Photoshop fake degrees. So any HR manager worth their salt will contact the universities directly to find out if you do in fact have these qualifications. Job offer. So this is the last point I'm going to focus on today. Is as you'd imagine, a lot of this stuff is kind of self-explanatory. A job offer is an offer to the successful candidate from the interview process, and they're offered the job. Generally, it's something that's sent out in writing, or you could come into the office maybe or something like that to sign it. Details about the job title, salary, and length of the probation period, and you'll get your contract, and you'll sign your contract, and then you begin your employment. I'm only focusing up to that point today, and we'll focus on other parts of a HR manager after that. But that's just kind of the I suppose the process from top to bottom for recruitment and selection. But a HR manager is involved in many more things than that. Thanks for listening.